Good morning, and thank you for joining us for another Top 10 tip at 10 a.m. on Mondays. I'm Lisa Ramirez, founding partner of U.S. Immigration Law Group. It's my pleasure to be a resource to our community and provide you with valuable information that we feel you should know before you take action or move forward in any direction. And so we thought it would be a good idea to talk about, kind of the things or questions you should be asking before you hire your immigration attorney. I think too often we find people going with the first person that they met with, the first person that perhaps spoke their language. And quite honestly, that's just not enough. Immigration law can be quite complex. And you want an experienced professional to provide you with legal guidance and legal expertise and representation in your case. You can only have one lawyer at a time. So once they enter your appearance, if you're wanting to change lawyers, then you're going to need to basically fire that lawyer in order for a new lawyer to be able to take over the case. So it is a decision that you really want to take seriously. And I think there's just some really key questions that we find not enough people ask to make sure that you're hiring the right person. And so, first of all, it's important to know that immigration law is federal law. So that means that anyone who has license in any state in the United States can practice immigration law. So, where I have my license here in California, if I wanted to open an office tomorrow in New York or Texas or Florida, I would easily be able to do that without getting a license in that state. So you don't always know exactly where the immigration attorney is licensed. So one of the first questions I think is really important to ask is, where are you licensed? Find out if they have a license. They should be able to tell you, and they shouldn't be offended by that question. I know some people, feel uncomfortable kind of questioning their lawyer, maybe because they're more educated or there's that level of intimidation. It is a very basic question, and they should be able to tell you. And why that's important is because you want to make sure that if there is a problem down the road, you want to know where you can file a complaint should it become necessary. Now, we hope that that never happens, right? But I think far too often we hear of stories of where, of either the attorney did not act properly, or the individual wasn't, in fact, an attorney at all. They called themselves, a notario, which in certain countries can mean that, the equivalent of attorney, and they're really not licensed to practice law. So you always want to just be clear and ask that question is if they're licensed, where are they licensed? So that you can check their state bar to make sure that they're in good standing, and you'll know, where to file a complaint should that become necessary. You also want to understand what that attorney specializes in, right? So ask them, does your firm, do you specialize in immigration law? A lot of times we find that there's attorneys that are doing family law and criminal law and corporate law and tax law and immigration law. And in my perspective, it's really difficult to be able to do really anything beyond immigration law. So if you have someone that's doing all of these other areas of law, in my opinion, it could be, a red flag in terms of, not knowing the immense changes and details and policy things that evolve over time. So you want to make sure that they're kind of well immersed in immigration law and are staying on top of the latest information. You also want to ask them, are they a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association? I do a lot of mentoring and training for young lawyers, for law students, for law student graduates who are looking to explore, practicing in the area of immigration. And one of the things that I tell them is that it's absolutely essential that they join the American Immigration Lawyers Association. So there's not really an alternative, American Bar Association, chapter that focuses on immigration law. It's really about AILA. And it's a national organization devoted to the training, the knowledge, the professionalism of its members. It's the only way we can really stay up to date on a daily basis. And I tell young lawyers, or I tell law school students, that I feel it's malpractice if you're practicing immigration law and you're not a member of AILA. I think you can get into a lot of trouble just because of the changes that are happening. Number three, I would say, ask them whether, I'm sorry, number four, what you really want to know is, do they have experience handling your type of immigration case, right? So immigration is so, vast in terms of the areas that it can cover, from citizenship to employment-based visas to I-9 compliance to removal defense You've got appeals and waivers and all sorts of, it's almost impossible for any one attorney to handle every aspect there is about immigration law. I can't even say with the 21 years that I have of experience that I know everything there is to know about immigration law. My partners handle cases that I wouldn't think of touching and vice versa. So you want to know, do they have, actual experience handling your type of immigration cases, and what is their success rate? Find out, what it is that how they've been successful in handling cases similar to yours. Number 5, you want to ask whether or not they're going to see your case through completion. There's so many cases that we find where attorneys will file petitions or applications, but then really don't assume responsibility for managing the case until there's a decision. Or maybe there is a decision and then they kind of just leave you hanging because you're really not sure what to do next once your family based petition is approved and you start getting communication from the National Visa Center and you feel a little overwhelmed or lost. So you really want to know, like, to the extent that they're going to be handling your case from beginning to end, or are they just doing this kind of piecemeal work that they're really only going to be filing certain aspects of the case, kind of just getting the ball rolling, but not really managing and making sure that your case stays within processing times. You also want to ask them, tip number 6 is, what are the chances of success, right? So even though we can't guarantee the outcome of any case, it would be really unethical, if not, malpractice to do so, because we can't control ultimately the outcome. It's really in the government's or the court's hands. But we certainly can give you kind of probabilities or odds of being successful depending on how complex your case may be. So ask them up front, what are the chances of success? What has been your success rate with cases such as mine? Tip number 7, ask them about the strategy, right? So once you've explained the facts, you've told them about your circumstances, they should be able to provide you a plan of action saying kind of, this is what we're going to do, step 1, step 2, step 3, and to give you kind of an idea about, the timeline in terms of the processing times and how soon you can expect to get from A to C or A to D, depending on the nature of the case. You want to be proactive in asking, what are the strengths and weaknesses of your case? Are there any red flags that the attorney can see that may impact the success that you could potentially have in your case? So just know ahead of time. Sometimes they just tell you the petition, and then you're quite surprised learning later, oh, well, that's not all. Now we've got to do a waiver, and that's going to be another, X amount of dollars. And then they do the waiver, and then it's like, oh, well, that's not all. Now we've got to do the consult. So you want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of the strategy for your case from beginning to end. And you just want to be very clear, again, in terms of what tasks that they're going to do for you, and if there's anything that they're going to expect for you to do yourself, whether they're going to actually sign a Form G28 and enter as your legal representative, or are they completing these documents and kind of as if you had done it yourself and not really take that responsibility. So make sure that they are providing you full and complete comprehensive legal representation. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what you're paying for. Tip number 8, ask them, how busy are you? Are they able to take your case, right away? We hear complaints many a times for people who come to our office who are just tired of waiting. They're tired of waiting sometimes years, if not months, for their attorney to take action, to actually, the deposit's been paid, they've given them the documents, the supporting documents, they've given them the information, and they're just waiting for some movement on their case. And one of the biggest complaints that the public has about all attorneys is that, attorneys aren't necessarily most responsive in returning phone calls or letting people know what the status of their case is. So just make sure you get kind of a commitment level from them that they're able and really eager to help you out, and when they can anticipate, assuming you've given them everything that they need, how long will it take them to handle your case. And then tip number 9, get up front the information about the costs, right? So you want to understand the breakdown of the costs, the legal fees versus the application fees. And then what fees come next? Is there anything outside that you should, anticipate, whether medical exam or passport photos, travel, costs, things of that nature. And then you can find out whether or not the lawyer accepts some sort of a payment plan. So if money is an issue, you always want to ask that question up front. Not all attorneys provide payment plans. So you just want to be prepared, financially speaking, in terms of what you need to provide. And then lastly, but I think equally important, ask them, are there any references that I might be able to speak to of other clients who might be willing to, talk to me about their experience? Check out their reviews online. To me, that's kind of the best reference sometimes to check. Look at Yelp, look at Google reviews, look at Avo, look at any, resource that you have in terms of review platforms for attorneys. See what people's experiences are. If you ask them to speak to a prior client, they may need to get their permission first due to confidentiality. But again, it doesn't hurt to check out their references, just as you would if you were applying for a job and looking to be hired by a company. So please don't give up your power. Know that you're in the driver's seat anytime you go to interview a lawyer. It is you. You are the boss. You are the one that's making the decision to hire them or not. So I hope you found these tips helpful. If you have questions, you need additional guidance, or if you see any red flags or concerns in your own experience with your immigration attorney, please don't hesitate to give us a call. And until next time, we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye bye.